So I thought I'd do a video on how to do competency-based interviewing well from the interviewer's perspective. But I think it'd also be of value to candidates as well, because then you'll see what the interviews are really driving for in the interview. Now, not many companies provide training on how to do competency-based interviewing well from an interviewer's perspective, often just seeing competency-based interviewing as another form of interview. And yet the data shows us that if competency-based interviewing is done well, you're much more likely to find the right candidate who's going to go on and be successful in your business. So, what is going on in a competency-based interview that enables us to be able to find those candidates and for them to perform and to know that they're going to go on and perform well in the role. And by the way, if you don't trust in statistics and data, then look at the success of companies like Amazon and Google, who put competency-based interviewing right front and center in their recruitment process. So let's focus on the interviewer. What does the interviewer need to do well in a competency-based interview, much more than in a typical interview? Well, the first thing that you're probably already aware of is that you want the candidates to stick to a specific event to talk through. So the reason why you're doing that is because the best predictor for future performance is past performance. So you're going to ask them to draw on their experiences, and from that you can see their behaviours. Now, this sounds easy to do, but it's not so simple for the candidate to recall everything they did at the time. They're so immersed in doing it, often they don't recall, and they often do come prepared for a competency-based interview, but not to the level that you really want them to go. So you've got to ask the questions. You've got to probe in a nice and professional way so it doesn't feel too intense for the candidate, but you've got to ask them to go deeper, ask them for specifics on what they did and why they did it and how they did those things, so that you can draw from them the data you need to be able to see at the end of the interview that they've got the behaviours that you're looking for at the right level. So probing is really important. Secondly, it's about sort of recognition of where the candidate's at in their story, because often candidates will start with a specific event, but then they'll start drifting off into an idealized version of themselves. So they start a specific event, but then they'll start giving you some opinions about, well, I always listen to my customers, and I try to understand them well. And so they drifted off from the specific event that they were talking about and now are in this idealized version. So you need to move them back to the specific event. Opinion-based statements are one. Sometimes candidates will drift off into generalized statements. What I normally always do is this, or they go off into hypothetical la-la land, as I call it. They'll start in a specific event and you're getting specific past-based tense, and then they start drifting off into sort of like a conditional language. So they start saying, well, what I would have done is this if this had happened. And you realize, okay, again, we're going into a non-real event, and you need to again move them back to the specific event. So understand when they're sort of drifting off into this idealized version of themselves, and move them back into the specific event, and drill down into what they did then and how they did it. Another thing candidates will do ahead of an interview is talk to their friends, and their friends will give them cliches often, and say, well, I always say this on an interview, and this played well for me in my last interview. And they come in armed with these cliches, and again, if they're getting them from other people, then they can't be their experience and their events. And again, they're just an idealized version of themselves. So, if you've got a candidate that's doing that, and I've had that on numerous occasions, and you can't get them to talk to you through a specific event, you really do have to say to them, well, look, how is this interview? How do you think you're doing on this interview? And normally they say, well, I'm doing quite well, because they've got out most of the cliches that they wanted to say, and you just have to let them know, no, it's not going so well. And I need you to talk me through specific events and not come out with cliches. And on more than one occasion, I've had candidates playing sort of buzzword bingo with me like this. I've got them to realize, no, I need them to talk through a specific event, and they've actually turned it around. Because they had the behaviors, they just didn't realize really what was going on in a competency-based interview. But if you can keep them to the event, whether they're really good at competency-based interviewing or not, and you draw out from them their experiences, and from that you can see their behaviors, then you'll, at the end of the interview, you'll have all this data on them, and you'll be able to marry that up against the information that you've got from the company on what are the behaviors you're looking for and at what level they are, and you can dig into the information you've got from your candidates and see the evidence there that marries up to what your company's looking for. So, right, okay, short video. And in the past, I've given half-day and 4-day training sessions on how to do competency-based interviewing well. So in a short video, we can't cover that much. If you want significantly more, then there is the book, Competency-Based Interviewing, The Competitive Advantage, which is on Amazon. But also, drop me a note after this one, and let me know if you want more content for candidates, more content for the interviewers themselves. I'm happy to go either way. All right, thank you very much for listening.